sticking on the topic of homelessness, let's go over to the state of Nevada. Now, Nevada has implemented a very, very interesting anti-homelessness solution here that I think it's definitely important we talk about, go through the pros and cons, see how it's effective, and kind of hear some feedback from the people who have gone through it about how they feel about the experience they had. So in Nevada, they are starting to build Nevada care camps, and these camps accommodate about 600 people with individual sleeping pods. It's like, imagine just a bunch of 6 by 6 foot rooms out in like a deserty area where homeless people can go and have shelter. Already sounds a little fucky, right? Does that sound like a prison?
A little dystopic.
Sounds a little dystopic.
Yeah.
But the homelessness living on the street has plummeted in Reno, Nevada. So it has gone from 780 people around to 329, which is a 58% drop in homelessness.
That's huge.
That's huge, right? So that's huge. Mm-hmm. So once the people are off the street, it isn't just like an emergency housing situation. The city has organizations and partners in this campus that help people find jobs and help get them permanent housing. There has been Republican and Democrat mayors that have looked at this example and have seemed to like it as a development. The Republican mayor of Anchorage, Alaska, is having problems with homelessness right now. And with the coming winter, he would like to do something similar to this to get the homeless people out of the cold.
Yeah.
Now, liberals are afraid that the system is a little bit too prison-like. I don't blame them for that. It's definitely spooky.
I would only call it prison-like, though, if their movement is restricted. It's not
So
that
they do have intense restrictions.
They do have intense restrictions, but it's not like they come here and then can't leave.
Right. If they come here, they are very, very able to leave. If you go there, you can't do drugs. You can't bring in alcohol. You can't get any visitors. No one can come and visit you. You can leave, but no one else can come into the campus. It honestly, it sounds like to me like it's doubling as a rehab facility and a homelessness facility.
Yes. But that's hard, right? Because if it's a rehab facility, then you need people helping with the rehabilitation. Like, rehab facilities aren't just places that you go to not do drugs.
Right. You can't have the situation where a bunch of homeless guys who are addicted to heroin go in and go quit cold turkey in the middle of the desert.
Exactly.
Right. That's not healthy.
No.
So there are definitely problems with this, but this is how they're setting it up so far.
So I'm curious, do you know or do you think the reason that they don't allow visitors is because these people can bring drugs?
That's exactly why.
Okay.
They don't want any visitors because they don't want anyone sneaking drugs into the camp.
Okay.
One of the big pushes for Reno to do this was because the judicial system in the United States rules that towns can't take down homeless camps if there is no state assistance to get them beds in the meantime.
Yeah.
So U.S. court, you are not allowed to just go in and wipe a camp off the map in some street in the middle of L.A. unless the L.A. government has beds in another place for these people to go. Mm-hmm. They said that they deemed it was too mean. It was too cruel.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a W for the justice system of the U.S. To be honest.
Totally.
So Reno, since this happened, they offered all these beds. Now Reno can go in, clean up a lot of the camps, and say, "Look, we have the beds for them if they want to go." Mm-hmm. They have another option. They don't have to be on the street right now. They could come to these beds.
Yeah.
Now here's one example of a guy who went through the system. His name is Jorge Ramirez Morhe. He had been on the street for about a year, and when he moved into these cities in Reno, he had a really positive experience. The system there helped him end up getting a job, and now he rents his own apartment, still tiny, 8 by 8 feet, but it's his own apartment.
Wow!
And he's able to afford, a $500, $550 a month rent in Reno, Nevada.
How the hell is an 8 by 8 foot room in Reno $555 a month?
Because this country is fucking broken, bro. That's how.
That's crazy.
An 8 by 8 room is $555 a month. God, we're so fucked. God, we're fucked.
Oh my God. That's barely room for a mattress.
Yeah. Dude, that's really bad.
Wow.
Yeah. That's really bad. But Jorge describes the camp as saying it's like having someone on your side helping you in the most difficult time of your life. If that's the overall sentiment of the people going through this process, I view it very positively.
Yeah, we don't know that it is.
We don't know
at all. This is the one person.
This is the one guy who got interviewed.
Very clear.
It could have been like fucking 90 other people banging on the doors that they were locked in there.
Yeah, this is usually the problem. Quick side note, because I always have to do this with like articles, is that they find any person that can give them a quote for either side.
Yes.
So you know that both sides exist, but you don't know what the distribution of people on the sides is.
Right, because listen, these news articles aren't studies.
No.
They're not designed to be studies. They're not controlling for factors. They're not looking at it quantitatively. They're not, so they're just going in and trying to get a good soundbite.
Yeah, they're looking for a story, and it's a better story if people feel either way.
Yes. Now, this stuff obviously isn't free. The upfront cost to build out the campus was $17 million, which first thing I heard that is cheap as hell. You're telling me it's $17 million to make these 600 rooms with all these beds and cut your homelessness by 58%?
Yeah.
For $17 million
That
bucks
is super cheap.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now they want to expand the services. So they do want to add a healthcare clinic to the campus. They want to add other services, and then eventually the total cost of the campus will be $80 million. Again, still cheap.
Yes.
To be honest.
Relatively. Although we are only talking about one city.
Yes, this is one city trying to deal with a homelessness population of around 800 people.
Yes. So it's one city with a small population. I mean, think about it. 80 million for 800 people. That puts your total at about 800,000 or 100,000 per person.
Right.
Which isn't super expensive.
Right. It's not, because if you think about all the policing that has to go into dealing with a homeless person, right? If the homeless person ends up going to jail, that's a big cost on the tax base, right?
Yeah.
So...
And of course, the economic gains that you get by having this person pay for their own home and have a job.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a really positive development. In my view, okay, the Washoe County Commissioner said that the Washoe County Commissioner came out against this policy, and he said it was basically a whole bunch of waste of time and money. He said that there is no demonstrated ability for this camp to do anything more than get people off the street temporarily. It goes against the anecdote of Jorge that we talked about.
Yeah.
The Washoe County Commissioner is a very he's a pretty Republican guy, and he doesn't really view rehabilitation as kind of a possibility for a lot of these homeless people. He thinks he just doesn't think that any type of job assistance will actually make an impactful difference to get them back in the labor market.
Okay.
I don't agree with him, but I could see if I don't know the results yet of how this affects permanent housing. So I don't know if I could totally dispute his claim there.
That's the thing. I'm hesitant to speak on it at all because this is a pretty new kind of experiment that they're running, right? This isn't something that's commonly run in different municipalities around the country. So who knows?
Yeah. And listen, I think this is a worthy experiment to keep trying, but it's not a silver bullet.
Yeah.
Like we said, there are strict rules with drugs, alcohol. Now, some homelessness people in these communities did say it felt like they were in a prison, and this is people who were interviewed on the scene. These homeless people did say that it felt like they were in a prison, but they were struggling because they still were happy and safe. And so they had this weird thought process in their head, like, yes, I feel a little bit like I'm in a prison. I feel like my rights are being a little restricted. But on the other hand, it's like I have food, I am safe, I am happy. And you have to think about it, being a homeless person, it's really hard just to feel safe. You're constantly at the threat of violence consistently by homeless people, by the state. You're always in some type of fear.
Yeah.
And to having a place where you just kind of feel like you can put your shoulders down and relax for a second.
Totally. Yeah. And homeless on homeless crime is like the most common type, right? Because who is more desperate? Who has more to gain by stealing from another person, specifically who's going to have probably less pull in the legal system or is going to be less likely to engage with it.
Right.
So,
yeah. People have found that it's a little difficult to convince homeless people to go to the center, but anti-poverty advocates in Reno, Nevada have been trying really hard to get as many homeless people to go to the center as they can. So the anti-poverty movement in Reno seems to be behind it, even though some liberals were initially against it, calling it prison-like. But it's a really interesting development. It's a really frontline way of tackling homelessness. It's a very, state heavy, large operation to do what you can to fight homelessness.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And it's hard because there are so many people who are going to be there are different solutions. There is no silver bullet. This is something that will help a lot of people, but there's still 329 homeless people staying on the street for a reason, right? And the more variety you need to introduce into your solution, the more expensive it is, the harder it is to implement.
Yeah.